with your
Okay.
powers. Alright, so I am attempting to take it live.
Nothing has
Oh
changed in
man, it showed up for me instantly. That's amazing. It went really fast.
so lucky.
Yeah.
Alright, well let's do this shindig.
Yeah. Are we
I was
ready?
born I
We're
was born ready.
so
Well, we're
ready.
on the screen.
Yeah, let's do
Yep,
it.
They
Alright.
that's
can
true.
see us.
Oh, I have to look like attractive, respectable.
That's not hard for you.
It is a tough life you lead, friend. Hello and welcome everyone to Gamestate episode 23. It is Monday, January the 7th, and we are back from the twisting grasp of holiday break. I am your host, Adam Winner is you, Ragsdale, and with me as always are Glenn Jones, event coverage coordinator for Star City Games,
Hello, everyone.
Stephen Flavel, man, I lost it already.
That's like halfway in between.
I'm sorry, friend.
Flaval.
I'm sorry. Stephen Flavel, poker pro and magic enthusiast,
Hey, everybody.
and Cedric Phillips, professional magician.
Professional airport traveler, actually. That's where I live now.
You up there with?
I've been home for 1 day so far this year. One. I'm glad to be home. Hi everyone.
It's going to be a long year.
It is.
Today we are going to talk about GP Denver, Star City Columbus, and Gatecrash spoilers. I think that's the sum total of our show. We are going to start with GP Denver because it was a GP, and that's generally how we run it hereabouts. It was 701 people, I believe. It was Legacy, obviously, which means there was all kinds of craziness and shenanigans going down. It was won by someone whose name I am almost certainly going to mispronounce.
I got it.
Alright, you want to run it?
Yeah, because I commentate.
Oh.
Vidianto Wijaya.
Okay, that's close with where I
Accurate.
was
That's
gonna
right.
go. Anyway, with Esper Stoneblade, in a top 8 of 3 Mystic decks, 2 Stoneblade, 1 Blue-White Helm combo, 2 Jund, 1 Rug Delver, 1 Bug, and 1 Elves. So the first thing we are going to talk about is Jund in Legacy, the assault of the Bloodbraid Elf on the top 8 of the Legacy format. It was a deck with 2 copies made top 8, Pat Cox and Josh Ravitz. They were almost identical, like clearly the same list. There were a couple cards different. Apparently, Reed Duke was involved in this creation somehow. I want to know what you guys thought about Jund in Legacy in general and this list in particular. Cedric, we will start with you.
Start with me, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think I'm gonna say?
Historically, I think this will
Yes.
not be your favorite deck.
Come on, this has got to be a joke, right? This deck. This deck looks terrible. All right, look, this deck's actually not that bad. It's basically like the Bug Shell, except for like having Brainstorm and good cards. They have like Lightning Bolt and Bloodbraid Elf, which is strange to me a little bit. But I talked with Josh Ravitz. I talked with Pat Cox a little bit. Pat said he liked this deck a lot. Josh also said he liked the deck a lot. They said they were very big fans of Bloodbraid Elf, especially when the format gets grindy, which has started to happen with these bug mirrors and what we saw at the Star City Games Invitational, and Glenn, I know you were there. We saw BBD win a bug mirror with Garruk Relentless, where he cast it and the opponent went, "Oh my god, I can't win," which is embarrassing.
Yeah.
So this is like another way to go about doing that, I guess. I know Ravitz told me like a lot of what happened to him when he played against like decks that had Jace is, they would cast their Jace and they're just like, "Oh, it's safe. I'll just brainstorm." And he's like, "Yeah, Bloodbraid Elf, Thoughtseize like your best card from your brainstorm and kill your Jace." And they're like, "I didn't know that people were doing that in this format. I'm confused." And he just caught like a lot of people off guard with that. I mean, it's just basically like the black-green shell of like the bug decks, which are just the most powerful cards in Deathrite Shaman and Abrupt Decay, and then their discard package. And Liliana's like an all-star in this format right now, and instead of having Jason Brainstorm, they have Bloodbraid and like Bolt, which is like weird to say that like the red cards are better than the blue ones, and I'm not even particularly convinced that they're better than the blue ones, but maybe they were for this particular tournament. I'm not really sure, but obviously it worked out for both of those guys, and it's like kind of easy to make fun of people for playing Jund and Legacy, but I mean, results are results, and also, like, if Reduke is attached to something, it's probably legitimate, so I can't really hate that much.
That's an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his track record of deck selection is pretty much impeccable, right?
It's
So,
pretty good.
alright, Glenn, how do you feel about Jund?
I mean, if you think about it, like I don't remember someone characterized it this way in the GP Denver coverage. Actually, I think maybe it was Pat Cox, but Jund is actually just like Bug with the red cards over the blue cards because the black green cards are the best ones. Like, so you're pretty much just better in the mirror since Blood Red Elf matches up so favorably against Jace, and Brainstorm is actually, while obviously like a very strong card, it's not like it gives you an actual physical edge in an attrition matchup since it doesn't very frequently gain card advantage, like when you're flooded or something like that. But how often are you going to be flooded against like a him deck? You know, that's not going to happen. If you had extra lands in your hand, like they were gone to those him to Torox. Like the extra cards are just not there to be shuffled frequently. You're either like dying or just not dying. So if you think about it that way, it kind of makes sense that just a more aggressive take that can trump Jace. Uh, as soon as Bug starts to come up, that becomes deck. And the other good deck of that tournament was Elves, which also it's because of Bug becoming a deck that deck became a big deal as well. So, I mean, it just seems like people were coming to beat Bug, and that happened to lead to Jund, at least for this group of players. Also, as far as I know, there were only like 4 people playing Jund in Denver. I know Pascal Maynard, I think, posted something to that effect, and 2 top 8'd and 2 top 64'd or something. So that's a pretty good rate for Jund. Obviously, they didn't know everybody. I'm sure there were a few others scattered throughout the tournament, but.
Alrighty. Steven, do you have any Jund-related thoughts?
Yeah, the card that we haven't mentioned yet is Grim Lavamancer, which like I actually think that's a really attractive thing to be getting out of red as well right now. So I don't know. I like the deck for the way the format's set up, but maybe we'll talk about this later. I'm a little confused by how the format's set up right now. So yeah.
The format feels horribly inbred right now. It's
Yeah.
It's really strange. Really, really weird format.
Okay, what else do we have on the agenda? Okay, well, yes, let's go directly to the format. I wanted to ask about the general state of the Legacy metagame, specifically at Denver, because I know it changes based on your location. But it seemed like at that tournament, at least, that there were a ton of fair decks, and not a lot of people doing the sort of goofy, wacky, I'm going to do something crazy and you're dead on turn 2 thing that we often see in Legacy, at least based on the information I saw from the coverage. So why do you think that was, and where do you think the format is going in future? Let's start with Steven this time. No?
I don't know. I have a theory, and this is just a theory, and you guys can like throw it completely out of the window if you like. I've noticed that in all the constructed formats for the last year or so, there's been a trend towards the grindy attrition-based decks sort of coming out on top. I think that there has been a little bit of a trend in Magic card design towards those sort of decks. We're just seeing a lot of very good grindy cards. And I wonder if like this is actually where Legacy is meant to go, given the cards that have been printed, and it's just taking much longer for Legacy to catch up because there are so many other things you can be doing, and it's played by players who aren't as into the pro scene and stuff like that, and so it's just lagging behind a little bit. I think that's a possibility. I also think it's a possibility that these great players brought these grindy attrition decks, which have tons of decisions and reward being a good player, and won with them, but they're not actually the best deck necessarily. Like, the good players could be playing combo deck and maybe be doing slightly better against a good field. They're just good decks for beating up on weaker players. So, sort of like, I don't know, I feel this playing Pauper Storm, if we're going to reason by analogy. I feel like the deck is like 55% to win most of my matches, no matter who my opponent is. My opponent does not matter at all, but I could play like any other deck in Pauper and feel like I'm like 60 to 70% to win because I just have more turns and more card interactions and I can outplay my opponent. So that's sort of what I wonder. That could also be my Legacy.
Yes, Pauper is the format where your opponent will literally try and cast a banana if you interact with them for long enough. So,
Not a rare banana, that's for
No.
sure.
Alright. Glenn, how do you feel about fair decks and the legacy format?
Well, I think that two things happened, at least with regard to the GP, and like I see a lot of legacy events, so you kind of see these trends emerging. And one thing, it's like pretty reasonably small attendance, obviously, for a Grand Prix. And Grand Prix this small tend to have a significantly higher density of like actual competitive players. These are the players who frequent the more grindy control decks. Like they don't like to put all their chips in on some of these combo decks that just kind of don't really have a lot of play to them. Like people like Vidi, for example. Vidi plays Stoneblade in Legacy all the time because he knows the deck well and he thinks its matchups are all like semi-reasonable. He doesn't ever feel like he gets annihilated, and he feels like he just always gets to play Magic. And if you think you're going to be better than all of your opponents, then those are the kind of decks you generally will sort of gravitate to, especially when you already know how to play them. Like there's not a lot of incentive to learning something new in Legacy when you have to learn not just how to play that deck, but how to play it in a wide variety of bizarre matchups, figuring out your sideboard, like all that stuff. So I think it was basically just a combination of like players played the decks they were generally familiar with, and also they already gravitated towards decks that weren't the decks that didn't show up, basically the grindier, the attrition decks, the control decks. I mean, Pat Cox, for example, he just switched off of Maverick, which is the legacy deck he'd been playing ever since Zoo became like semi-unplayable. Although amusingly, I think Zoo is like coming back around now that Bug's a deck, and Zoo seems like it should be a deck that can actually play Magic against Bug reasonably well. So Pat Cox might change his tune at some point, but for now, obviously, he has Jund, and these are the decks he plays. Like, he likes these aggressive green decks. Those are the ones he wants to play. Vidi plays Stoneblade. Obviously, LSV and Matnas both have a pretty reasonable history with elves, having each won major events with those creatures. So there's a certain amount of background in Legacy that goes along with deck selection, and I think you just always have to respect that. It's actually a pretty big deal in tournaments when you're playing against people because they frequently have a reputation for playing very specific ranges of decks.
And some of us just want to watch the world belch. Cedric, how do you feel about
I tried to be
Legacy?
non-specific in my generalization.
I would pay a large amount of money to play this tournament again. I really would, because I feel like the way that I played this tournament, I don't think I've played a tournament this badly since in like 6 years or something like that. Like your analysis, both your guys' analysis of the format was like really correct. Like things got really grindy, and like that. Then we start seeing like people move forceful to their sideboard, and people are moving towards Jund decks, and like all these crazy things are happening. And then of course there's people with track records, as Glenn said. Matt Nass and Luis are playing elves. There are people who play certain types of archetypes. If you have seen VD play a game of Magic ever, Stoneblade, Stoneforge Mystic is in his deck. So like you can put the people you're playing against on a range of decks and like a pretty like rational reason why they're playing the deck. For example, a lot of people at this tournament thought I was playing goblins, which is understandable because I talk about goblins all the time. And I was going to play goblins. And then if you like do a brief overview of the format for like 5 minutes, like you look at all these bug decks and they all have engineered plague in the sideboard, and all these black decks have engineered plague in the sideboard to make sure they don't lose grinding games to lingering souls. And there's a really cool way to go about like beating people who are trying to play grinding games. It's killing them on turn 1. And if I didn't like have my brain removed and left here on my bed before I went to the tournament, I probably would have had a really good tournament. Because like the format right now is like a lot of grindy decks, and then like these combo decks that can battle through grindy decks, like elves, like that can battle through like what these grindy decks are trying to do. But like the decks that don't really handle like discard very well, like the combo decks that don't really do that very well are like High Tide, Storm. Like those decks don't really deal with like the discards, the hymns, and the stuff that is taking place right now. So like that's why you didn't really see those decks do very well. But like if you're playing with these combo decks that go off like on the first like 1 or 2, like the first or second turn of the game, that's like where you want to be if you want to play combo this weekend. And like that's what I realized too. And like that's why I took the step I took and not playing goblins, because even though goblins is like really good at grinding people down, like that's a specialty, it doesn't grind through plague very well. Like you can't really, no matter like how good you are at playing goblins, and I consider myself to be a very good goblins player. My opponent doesn't have to be very smart to cast engineer play. They just cast it and I just lose, and I'm just gonna be mad. And like you can make the argument for like why is it in their sideboard like to beat goblins, but again, like when the matchups get so grindy and like people are playing Lingering Souls to win grindy matchups, then they're just porting Engineered Plague to beat that. And then like there's just other like if you look at deck lists that are just taking place, like this format has just become like an ultimate grind fest. How do you pronounce the card that was in Rav's sideboard?
Chains of Mephistopheles? Is that the?
Yeah, that's like the ultimate grinder card. I asked him like, what is that for? He's like, well, it trumps Brainstorm.
It's the card. Yes, it is the card that makes Brainstorm the most embarrassing card imaginable.
It's like it trumps Brainstorm. It trumps like Jace's Brainstorm. Just like I don't even know what the card does. But are we at that point where the format is so grindy where we're trying to trump Brainstorms? Really? That's what's going on now? So, I mean, the format has really taken just an interesting like shape of where we're at, because there's all this talk of like these bug decks, and now people are playing Jund to beat bug, and it's like, well, what are people gonna play to beat Jund? Like, it seems like Miracles is pretty bad now, or at least like the counterbalance part of Miracles is really bad now, so like they have to adjust. And like if people are just going to go into the grindy land with like Lingering Souls, and how am I going to beat that? Then it just seems like a combo deck that I played, which is typically pretty bad, it seems like it'd be like really well positioned right now. But again, some people may not get the memo on what happened in this tournament and what happened at the Star City, and then just get forced right out of the ball game. So yeah, we're in an interesting situation in Legacy right now, I think. Like, it's kind of easy to like look at the Jund deck and be like, that's a terrible deck, but like it's a pretty reasonable choice for what people thought was going to happen this weekend. And I think the people who chose that deck were like pretty dead on of their assessment of what was going to happen in the format.
Yeah, and I know that it's like you make it so easy with your deck choices traditionally, but I think you were actually correct. I think your deck was actually probably insane for this tournament. Like, I think every single person in the top 8 listed Belcher as like their worst matchup possible. They're just like, can't ever beat this deck. So
like, I know, like, most of the pros or whatever in the tournament, and I was just like talking to them like, what are you guys playing this weekend, all this stuff, and they're just like, like playing Bug, like, I'm playing Jund, I'm playing like this deck. I talked to Matt, and he's like, I'm playing Elves. I'm just like, I'm playing Belcher, and I feel like I can't lose anyone. They're like, yeah, God, please don't let me get paired against you, please, no. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is fantastic. Like, I'm not better than any of these people, but if I get paired against them, I'm probably just going to win. And it's my own fault that I did bad at the tournament. Like, you guys, obviously, as you said, you guys make fun of my deck choices a lot, and that's fine, because, like, I'll be honest, most of the time you guys are right. I play, like, a bunch of shitty decks, and this deck isn't very good either, but for this weekend, it was great. It was just the best deck to be playing this weekend, I think, and I just blew it. So I would just love to do it over again.
I think it was definitely a very reasonable deck to be playing this weekend. One did also top 8 in the tournament I was at in Ohio as well. So, I agree with your decision about how it's positioned. Like, at the same time, I can see merit to just, like, not wanting to be there, But I also wouldn't fault you for being there.
just the grumpy man's approach. Like, I thought about playing, then I didn't.
It was like a very like calculated risk of like playing this deck in a tournament. Like basically, like Jerry playing Niv Magus at the Pro Tour. Like, it was a huge calculated risk. And the first day of the Grand Prix, I played against a Forceful deck once, went 2 and 3, just because I'm stone cold retarded and played really bad all weekend. So like if we're looking at this, and I don't like to do this very often, but like if you look at the decks that I just played against, of the 5 rounds I actually played, I had 3 buys. I should have been 8 and 1, potentially 9 and 0, but I gave games away, played poorly, and don't really. I got what I deserved, basically. But if I could, like, I'm not unhappy like with my preparation for the tournament. I think I chose very well. I think things went the direction I thought I thought that they were gonna go, and then I just didn't capitalize on the opportunity. So no one really to blame but myself.
All right. Well, this is going to be a serviceable segue for us to the legacy portion of Star City Columbus. We will touch on a couple things that happened in both events. I wanted to ask you guys super quickly while we were transitioning, do you think there's ever going to be a time when, like, a significant percentage of the field is on Belcher? Just, like, 20% of the field shows up with Char Belchers? Because I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No,
maybe we'll get to the point where people are running Mirror Attack. You probably don't want Pithing Needle,
what is
right?
Well,
you can leyline them, like Leyline of Sanctity.
I mean, then you just get goblined.
Oh, yeah, that's true, though.
See, that's why Belcher's so good.
Yeah, that's why.
Because it goes See, because it comes from all these angles. You can't cover them
It
all.
comes from everywhere.
It's got
That's why
two
it's so good.
angles.
Actually true. Actually true.
Mindbreak
like it.
Trap comes up in the
Well,
chat. That seems good against both of your angles.
Well, see, that's not true. That's not true, actually, because, like, I've beaten many Mindbreak Traps playing Belcher, because you, like...
You
if
just like
you,
two sources, then two sources, then Belcher.
you just slow go off. Like, you know, like, if you're 100% that they have Mindbreak Trap and not Force, then yeah, you can just slow go off to be able to beat that. But then again, that doesn't work all the time either, so... There isn't a card that automatically beats you, but there are some cards that are just difficult to get around.
Yes.
My kingdom for this metagame. Alright, well the real deck that occurred at both events was Elves, which as Glenn mentioned, sort of shot back to prominence this weekend in Legacy, due primarily I think to its good bug matchup and what people felt about that. But obviously Matt Nass did well with Elves in Denver, and I don't have the name of the person who did. Oh, Riley Curran won the event with Elves in a mirror in the finals. Is that what happened in Denver?
No, it's Bug. He beat
Oh,
Bug
okay.
in the mirror.
Sorry. But anyway, yes. The Columbus Legacy was won by Elves. Elves did well at both events. How do you guys feel about Elves currently? And talk a little bit about why it is good now versus why it was not good, say, a month ago. Glenn, we will start with you.
Yeah, honestly, I really like. I have liked Elves in the past. Cranerson and I share some similarities in the combo decks we enjoy, which are like Elves and Enchantress. And he's been a big proponent, obviously, of Elves. But the thing about the deck is it's really fun to play like as a combo deck. Like you get to do a lot of math. You're drawing cards. Like it's a rewarding deck. And if you like to attack, you get to do that too. But the big change was definitely that it's a deck that is pretty resilient to Engineered Plague anyway. Like it has reasonable access to answers, and it can sort of like slow go off. It has multiple creature types to like actually build reasonable boards that can come back. Like Symbiote Visionary all by itself, as long as you eventually do find a solution to Plague, is gonna be enough to claw you back into the game regardless of like how much you lost. So I find that aspect of it pretty interesting. The big changes obviously were the addition of black for Deathrite Shaman and Abrupt Decay, and also the addition of Natural Order. Natural Order is a pretty big deal because, as Cranerson explained actually in a deck tech I did with him, one of the strengths of the Elf deck is that it's an aggro deck that has a combo potential. So your opponent has to respect the fact that you might just kill them if they give you half a chance, while also having to deal with your beatdown plan. And Natural Order is another way for you to just kill them, especially with the addition of Craterhoof Behemoth, and to a lesser extent the sideboarded Progenitus as well, which is a nightmare for the Bug deck. It has most current incarnations of Bug have basically no answers. I think we'll be seeing Perish in coming weeks, making its way back into some sideboards. It's really awkward in the Bug deck, obviously, because it's a Deathrite Shaman deck. So probably going to see Bug either shifting directions a little, or maybe other decks with Perish just becoming better, because Perish is a reasonable card to board in against Bug already. I've seen it done a number of times, so I think this was a really good week for Elves. I don't think we'll be seeing a week this good anytime soon.
Alrighty. Steven, how do you feel about Elves?
I really like this Elves deck. I didn't used to like Elves at all. I just felt like, this isn't entirely fair, but I felt like it was sort of a one-dimensional deck, like Belcher, which was slower than Belcher. And that's not entirely fair, because it does have a few other things that it can do. It's a little more rounded. But I was not a fan, and I actually really like it now. For two reasons. One is that the meta is very grindy, and I feel like it lines up very well against that meta. It has ways to actually beat the grindier decks when they're trying to grind. And the other is that it feels much more well-rounded now with the addition of Black and Deathrite Shaman, and like Progenitus being very good off Natural Order, and it just feels like it has more dimensions to play. So I like this deck a lot. I could see myself playing it and enjoying it.
Does it matter to you guys thematically that Deathrite Shaman is an elf? So it fits well in
No.
you? No, not so much. Alright, Cedric, Elves.
Unbelievably well positioned for the previous weekend. Great choice, honestly. I don't know, what's the best deck list versus the an inferior deck list. Like the deck list I'm looking at that Riley won with, he has 3 Cradles, 3 Natural Orders, a Crop Rotation. There are some working parts that can go with this deck, but as both Glenn and Steven said, if you're playing against this grindy format that we're in right now, and they just want to grind you down with like Thoughtseizes and Hymns and all this nonsense, you just get to grind them right back with just the most pathetic combo of Elvish Visionary plus Wirewith Symbiote, and there's just like nothing they can do about it. Yeah, it's just game. It's just game. You just get to grind the shit out of them with that, and it's awesome that you just get to do that. You just get to see like 2 cards a turn and just grind them down, and they can't keep up with their Hymns. And like it's kind of weird because like it's like a weird sort of way you can like outgrind a Jace if it's in there, and the Jace won't really be able to defend itself either. So it's interesting, and obviously, as Glenn said previously, the other thing about this deck is that it can just kill you on like turn 2 or 3 if they get like the Glimpse draw. So they can go into the grindy way of just grinding these black decks down, or they can just kill you on like turn 2 or 3 because the deck, when it draws Glimpse, it just goes into overdrive. So I think that this deck was awesome for this weekend because obviously people were moving towards Thoughtseizes and Hymns and all these grindy elements, and I think this and Belcher are the 2 combo decks to play if you're in that grinding metagame, because Belcher kills them before they get to start grinding you, and this one just somehow outgrinds the grindy decks with Visionary and Symbiote, and has frightening consistency in finding like those 2 cards because of Zenith and just like because of Glimpse and stuff like that. So I think that this was a fantastic choice, and obviously Matt Nass, Elves King, had a fantastic weekend with it, and it won the Star City too. So really, really good choice.
All right, I want to quickly run it back before we get off Legacy. I know Elves has a good bug matchup, and that was sort of trumpeted this weekend. Does it have a good Jund matchup as well? Does anyone know?
I don't know offhand. It doesn't sound that bad, just in the abstract.
That was one place that I thought Grim Lavamancer was pretty exciting.
Yeah, Grim Lavamancer is definitely a big game, and Lightning Bolt's better than Brainstorm in that matchup.
Right.
But, I mean, by and large, there are so many similarities going on between the decks. I don't think Jund's like a big dog, but I don't think it would, just want to play against Elves all day either. I think it's probably like a 60-40 or something like that.
Do you think Jund's up? Like 60-40?
No. I think
up?
Jund's probably behind against Elves.
Okay.
Yeah, Elves likes to play against the fair decks.
Yeah, I think Elves is up. I also, I mean, you can say this about anything. I think it also depends on the competence of like the Elf player playing the deck, because there's a lot of things going on in that matchup, and like they need to know like what's important, what's not important. Like if I'm playing Jund, I'm playing against Matt Nass, playing Elves, I feel like I'm probably like a pretty big dog. I think he like knows exactly what he wants to accomplish in the matchup the entire time. And I also have like the fear of being on the Jund side of like I kind of have to like tailor. I kind of have to like play with the situation of like I could die on turn 2 or turn 3, like so that's like really scary to me. But then like I also have to have the elements in my deck to like win the grind war too. And I don't know if you can do both of those things of like trying to prevent them from killing you on turn 2 or turn 3, and then they're just like I didn't have that draw anyway. Like I'm just trying to go to late game, and then like your deck can't like function that way because like you can't find the cards that you need to like via Brainstorm and Jace to be able to outgrind them when you're playing Jund. So it seems like it would favor Elves. I mean, 60-40, if you want to throw a percentage on it, sounds pretty right. Maybe even a little bit worse.
You can actually use the finals of Columbus to kind of contrast that, because that was the Bug versus Elves deck, and the Bug deck like established a slightly favorable position in game 2, and then just like couldn't dig through to like put it away, and then a Glimpse of Nature and a creature ended the game. Like that was just all that the Elf deck needed to put together,
It was just
so I think
time.
Yeah, like those are the kind of positions that you're in. Like even if you have the weapons, you actually like their ability to kill you from nothing is pretty good. So I imagine having access to the hand disruption is a big deal, but beyond that, yeah, probably just not where you want to be.
It's like your classic rock deck problem, right? Where like you shred their hand with therapy or whatever, and you can't stop the top of their deck. I always remembered like playing rock decks against like Tron or whatever. Like you shred their hand with therapy, and they're just like, I drew Factor Fiction. This game is not. This game is over now. It's like the same thing in this matchup, most likely.
Alrighty, neat. Let us move on from Legacy. We will talk a little bit about Standard, and then we will envision the future Standard for you with our poorly functioning crystal balls. But there was a Standard event. There was the Standard Open in Columbus, which was won by Kevin Brumley with Mono Red. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I just assume I'm mispronouncing everyone's name, so I apologize in advance. But it was won by Mono Red, and that is the first thing we're going to talk about. I know Cedric has done some Mono Red in his day. We've seen Mono Red win some number of events. It won like a Moto thing a while ago. I don't know if that was a PDQ or an MOCS or something like that. But we've periodically seen Mono Red pop up and win some stuff, and I would like you guys to explain why to me, because I don't know why. So let's start with Cedric. Cedric, tell me why Stone Rights are just giving people the business.
But I don't know why either. Because I tried this and it didn't work for me. And I actually made a fool out of myself playing this deck in San Antonio. So I don't really know why either. I mean, it's the kind of deck. To me, this is just a matchup deck, honestly. And one thing that in the Star City circuit is, like not a lot of people really get, this like enjoyment out of playing the Band Control deck. Glenn, I know you were there. Was there a lot of Band Control this weekend in Columbus?
Not a lot, but it was there.
Okay.
There were a few. Lauren Nolan was playing it, and I saw I think 2 at the top tables circa around 4-ish. So.
Okay. If you play like in the, there's like the Invitational for Star City, or like there's Grand Prix and stuff, where like there's this group of players, these awesome players, the pros, whatever, they're gonna play Man Control, whereas it's not that popular in the Star City circuit, and Zombies is a more popular deck, or just people, especially in Ohio where I used to PTQ when I was younger, it's just an aggressive area. People just like to attack in that area, and if people are playing Zombies, which probably a healthy amount of people were playing that weekend, just my best guess, then this deck is fantastically positioned. And to me, this deck is just purely a matchup deck. If you play against like a Band Control deck or a mid-range deck, yep, you're dead. Nothing you can do about it. Just move on to the next round. You're not beating Thragtusk. You're not beating Hunt Masters. Like if I was playing Mono Red against the deck that Glenn, you top 8 in Vegas with, good God, the beating you would lay on me. I can't imagine ever beating you. But, if you play against like Black Red Zombies or like Mono Red Mirrors and stuff like that, then you're probably good to go. And maybe that's just what happened to Kevin all weekend. This is a huge tournament. Things have to break your way to win like this. It was like 10 rounds. Was it 10 rounds, I think? And then
Yeah, 10. It was only
10
like 10 players away from the cut to 11.
Yeah, to 11, yeah. So, I mean, some things have to break your way, obviously, especially when you're playing Mono Red. But, yeah, it says in his top 8 profile, he played against Red-Black aggro 7 times and went 6-1 against it. And he played against 1 Thragtusk in 10 rounds. That's a recipe for fucking success, my friends.
Well done.
Yeah, that is a recipe for success with Mono Red.
Magic is a very difficult game.
Yeah.
I like that part of your praise for that deck was if you play against the mirror, you're okay.
Yeah.
You totally said that.
I meant it too. It wasn't an accident.
So it's a Ponza style deck. Is that what you're telling me?
It really is. I mean, you can look at the deck list. You guys are all smart people. Everyone that's watching too. Let's just be honest. Look at the cards in the red deck. These cards fucking suck. Like
there's only two Shred Freaks, friend. Yeah, only 2.
Tackler, Noble's not even good. Like these cards are just garbage outside of like Hellrider and Ash Zealot. Like even the burn spells aren't even that good. But if you get paired against the right decks, you can win. I mean, the player profile literally says, I don't even say anything else. Red-Black 7 times. That's Game Boys. Like that's it.
That's Game Boys. All right, Glenn, do you have anything further about Mono Red?
No, I think Cedric covered it pretty well, actually. It is definitely a matchup deck in a lot of ways. I mean, that said, it's a good one, like it holds its margins where it's supposed to. And it has the added perk of when you are in a bad matchup, you can still just get some free wins when they stumble. Like, obviously, Shroud did in the finals. His mana base really hurt him several times. Like, all those comes into play tap lands, he was too slow.
Oh, we'll go there. We will go there in a moment. All right, Steven, do you have anything further on Mono Red?
The only thing I want to say about Mono Red is it doesn't have the guild gates. And I don't know. Maybe it's worth it to play Mono Red because you don't hate yourself so much.
Right. I think that's like one of the main things Mono Red has going for it in the standard format is it's like one of the only aggro decks that doesn't have to play these terrible lands that just make you want to kill yourself.
And I almost have multiple times. Trust me. I almost have.
Right. Alright, let me just get the link. The next thing we're talking about is Shroud's deck from this open, because that's just like my favorite story. So
tell the story.
Well, I'll let Glenn tell the story because he was the one to whom the story was related. I just want to put the link in the chat for all of the nice people at home. But
Such
Glenn,
brutes.
why don't you tell us about the magical creation of one Andrew Shra?
Sure. So I did a deck tech with Andrew, and I knew Shrout obviously beforehand. He's won a Legacy Open and shows up at a lot of the Open Series events. And he mentioned to me like he was looking for cards, trying to find everything. And I asked him, I was like, when you get together, maybe we can do a deck tech. And he's like, I mean, I don't know if you want to deck tech this. Like, I'm literally just playing the cards I can find. Like, it's so bad. And I'm like, that's a way better deck tech than anything else, right? Like, it's just gonna be hilarious. So basically, with an IRL binder brew, he starts off 7-0 or something before we finally do the deck tech, and obviously loses the next round and then manages to win his way into top 8, surviving the curse of the deck tech. But yeah, basically it is a deck of both necessity and just availability. And you can also see a lot of amusing things coming together in the list. His Borderland Ranger can't fix mana very well for his Angel of Serenities, for example. I know watching him play a number of times, he just had Borderland Ranger, and it was just not going to help him cast a spell. Like, he'd have the Sphinx, the Island, the Plains, Sphinx's Revelation, Angel of Serenity in his hand. He's like, Borderland Ranger, Forest, go. That's it. That's all I got. So if you're going to play his deck, I might tinker with the mana a little bit. But to be fair, you can already look back in time to Vegas with Jun Yu, who played a very similar list, and I think his mana worked a little better, if I recall. It certainly did against me. So if you're interested in this deck, then it's not exactly a new concept. Shroud's actually borrowing from a few sources. His big addition, obviously, like he really wanted to play Jason Anaya deck because he thought that was one of the most insane ways to kill a mirror match. And it is, to be totally fair. It's very, very good against all those Naya decks.
All right. Cedric, do you have any comment about Shroud's mastery?
We might have different definitions of the word mastery. I don't know what to say about this.
All right. Well, his deck choice for the weekend, then.
Yeah, sure. Look at this bad boy. What can't it do, right? Like, besides fix its own mana with a mana-fixing creature, what can't it do?
Cast spells? Is that the answer to your question?
What can't this deck do? I love it. Me personally, the standard format was just worn on me quite a little bit between losing like Rakdos Guildgate a bunch when I need a 4th land a lot, and like looking at decks like this. It's like kind of annoying like decks like this could exist. I mean, just look at this deck, and the mana isn't even good. And I don't know. It's like a fine deck. Obviously, there's a lot of powerful cards, a lot of mythic rares, all this cool stuff. But whatever. It's just a deck to me. I mean, it's like Glenn said. It's just a deck like you've seen like. It's just like a different take on Bant Control, but it's like Glenn's deck from Vegas, mushed with like Reed's deck, mushed with like the worst mana base like we've ever seen. Like Kessig Wolfrun just in there for Val and his 4-color deck that just has heavy mana requirements. Yeah, just the syncopate in the board.
Hey,
why?
He's got no doors.
Like
I said, he's got no doors. Like, we've seen Wolfrun in more ambitious places.
I suppose that's true. I mean, but Ollie's was calculated with precision. Whereas this one, it's very clear.
He's got no Ranger's paths, too, so, like,
yeah,
it's tougher to get there.
This deck has, like, a syncopate in the board and, like, a Curse of Echoes and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure the deck is fine. Again, like, a deck like this, there's a million powerful cards. Like, if you draw your mana and you can cast all your powerful cards, no one's ever going to beat you. But, like, that's, like, kind of sums up this format to me, too, right now, so. We just need that stupid, I know we're going to get the spoilers in a minute, that Skullcrack. Good God, am I happy about that card, but...
Just want to Flames of the Blood hand some people? Just get them?
You have no idea.
That card is legitimate.
I have cast some Flames of the Blood hand, so I am willing to believe that. Alright, Steven, do you have any thoughts on this particular monstrosity before we move on?
I think the only interesting thing about this deck to me is that unless somebody told me, I would assume that he had like absolute 100% card availability, like no problems at all, and this is just what he built. Like, that's just what I think is standard at this point. Like, you want to play 4 colors and put all the spells in? Sure. Well, everybody else is. Like,
yeah, that's what everyone else is doing, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. Good work.
All right. Do you guys have anything further you want to mention in standard before we get spoily?
No, let's get spoily in it.
It's time for a rotation. Does anyone else agree with me? I mean, Glenn, you cover these tournaments every week, obviously for SCG Live. Like, am I the only one that thinks the format's like kind of stale and we like really need Gatecrash to get here, or do people still get like enjoyment out of this?
I don't think it's like that stale. I think there are a lot of viable decks. Obviously, we know what most of them are at this point, and a lot of them look very similar. But I am very happy that Gatecrash is coming out. Like I like it when things get shook up. It obviously makes my job way easier, so that's an added perk.
Yeah,
But
I'm doing coverage in San Diego this weekend and then Dallas the next weekend. And it's like I'm like doing my prep for it. I'm just trying to like think of ways to like spice it up a little bit because like we've kind of seen all the decks at this point, and it's just like all the decks are the same. Like they're all doing the same thing. Like I hope like a bunch of people play like the Omniscience deck or something, like just to give us a little bit of spice instead of just some black red zombies versus band control. And like then like the person playing the Huntmaster deck, we need some spice. We need something to shake it up. I think.
You want to give it a blast on the Spice Weasel? Let's hear.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Spice Weasel is the best weasel. Alright. Let's talk spoilers. We are going to... I will link you to 2 different spoilers, I think, is probably the way we're going to go here. What is the first thing I'm going to ask you guys? Alright, the first thing I'm going to ask you guys is very general. I want to talk about the Evolve mechanic and what you think that's going to mean, both in Limited and in Constructed. Oh god, that link didn't work. Oh no, it did. It did. I linked to both the Salvation spoiler and the Wizards official spoiler. You can go wherever you want. I don't really care. But yes, Evolve mechanic. Cedric, I will go to you first. The card I was specifically thinking of was the 1-mana 0/1 flyer, which I think is the one that encompasses the mechanic the most for me, but I think it's interesting on a number of cards. I want to hear what you guys think about it going forward.
So me, as I've probably told you guys before, I'm not the best at assessing cards without actually playing with them. I overlook a lot of things. When I look at the Evolve mechanic, the first thing that jumps to mind is mostly a limited mechanic, typically not your constructed mechanic. But if it is good and constructed, it's very good and constructed is the way I kind of look at it. There's some of the creatures or whatever, like the one that draws cards. Like I think that one's like completely busted. Like if it's good, then it's busted. Like the potential for a combo deck or something like that. But I think that this ability it's fine. It's like kind of unique. I can't really wrap my head around like what you're supposed to do with it, like in terms of constructed, like what like your curve would look like for this, like for that particular card, or like Experiment 1 or anything like that. But I think it's a good mechanic. I think it's better than Graft was. It lets you kind of. Well, I liked Graft. What are you laughing about?
Graph was awful. Apparently it was really unpopular because like it made you put a lot of shit on the table and people really didn't like that. That's what I've heard. I can't actually confirm that, but I've heard that.
I wanted to like the mechanic. I like that 4-mana 4/4 Cytoplasm.
By shit, do you mean creatures with graph on them?
I like that.
Hey man, are you dissing Helium Squirter?
I like Plaxcaster Frogling, I think his name was.
Yes.
I think it was a good creature.
The Mighty Frog was powerful. He went in Prismatic Aggro. I don't think he ever went in a real like actual constructed deck.
Look,
but...
and even though Plax Manta didn't have Graft, I like that card too. All right. So.
Well, yeah, that one was good.
Yeah. All right, but that card was Simic or whatever. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, Evolve. It's a pretty cool mechanic, but it's like a mechanic. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys can judge it better, because like again, I'm not really good at like looking at stuff like this. Like I don't know, like like I play like that 0/1, and then like I don't what's like my best draw if I start with like 0/1 and then like guy. Like what am I trying to accomplish? There's probably something there. I mean, I think it's very clear that it's a good ability and limited, but I mean, I'm not constructed. It's probably good. I wish I could be more helpful. But I'm just not really good at like especially for this particular mechanic. It's been really hard for me to just put my head around.
All right, Glenn, how do you feel about Evolve?
I agree. It's a mechanic I think will attach more to limited than constructed over the next few years. Yeah, sure, I'll say that. It's just a lot of the cards we've seen so far aren't especially aggressively costed, so I think that's going to really trouble making them make the cut. That said, for limited, I really like a lot of them. I know, what is it? Something Crassus. Seems pretty interesting. The unblockable 04. Elusive
Oh
Crassus.
yeah.
I like that guy.
Yeah.
Seems sweet. He reminds my roommate of Vagain Hydropon in that, he's sort of this card that just like sits there and helps you win the game over the course of a really long time. And like I can respect that. It seems interesting. The Fathom Mage, same kind of deal. So I think it's a interesting mechanic. I think it's really well designed mechanic. I think it's obviously going to be limited and relevant, and I don't think it's bad there. But it's also really attractive as far as like a Timmy kind of card goes. Like Timmy's love these, add counters to my guys, like spread these counters around, move it. It's just a popular thing to do. So from that respect, I think it's gonna, have a significant fan base as far as things go, as opposed to whatever the Orzhov one's called. Like I think that
Extort.
yeah, Extort. I don't think that's like attractive to anybody. Like I
I
don't
would
think we
think
want to play with it. I don't think Timmy wants to
that
play with it. I
doesn't
don't think that guy over there wants to play with it.
doesn't fit into the Glenn Jones theory of fun, extorting people. I would think that
I
would be
like
right
the
in your
name
wheelhouse.
mechanic. Actually bummed that they burned such a good name on a mechanic that like resonates so poorly.
All right, Steven, how do you feel about Evolve?
I think the 1-drops are gonna just be broken. Just gonna
Ooh.
substandard.
Ooh,
I do.
ambitious.
I think like for every set that's been released for the past 2 years, there's been a broken 1-drop, and every single time everybody's been like, "Oh, this is one." And then they're like printing Champion of the Parish at common, which like the fact that it's common only affects. Is it common? It's better be common. Obviously, that only affects limited, but Champion of the Parish, like
Uncommon.
uncommon. Okay. The Champion of the Parish decks were like they were Champion of the Parish decks. And you had 4 Champions of the Parish, and if you drew them, you won. And now we now have a format with 3 Champions of the Parish in it. Seems like to me. I think that this can be pretty format warping. I think the 3 custom, 4 custom ones aren't very exciting. But in a format where like Restoration Angel's already very good and things like that, these are going to consistently get to 4 power, and I think they're going to be really good.
I want you to be right about that, very badly. I'd love to give the beatdowns. I didn't really even think of them that way. Actually, I assume you're speaking about Experiment 1, like this 1/1 human. Yeah, the first one. I didn't even know it was a human. I didn't even know this card was a human, which actually seems like kind of a big deal, being that creature type. Yeah, I think that's like that's like a pretty big deal actually.
That's a very big deal.
And I mean, obviously the second ability will come up in, quite a few circumstances actually, and especially because Supreme Verdict you can regenerate off of. So, it's actually a pretty good point. I didn't look at the card that way at all.
Yeah, it's little like a troll, honestly, and a lot of matchup is going to look a little bit like that.
The biggest card I think that it might wind up punishing is actually Bonfire of the Damned, which is like notoriously awkward against Champion of the Parish in general. So like having just multiple champions for that kind of deck, like your Silverblade Paladin Champion of the Parish deck, and they're like, all right, well, I'll Bonfire for 2, and you're like, sure, I lost that Silverblade Paladin, like serve for 9, like these are just the things that happen.
All right, before we move on, I just wanted to echo Glenn's point, and I think one thing that you guys didn't mention is that it feels very blue-green to me, this mechanic. I think it was designed very well. Like, I really like how it goes on the card, and I think it will be enjoyable to play with. So I like it. I like it quite a bit. The next thing I want to talk about is the Cipher mechanic, because that's the one for me where I'm just like, oh man, I don't know how this works. I mean, I understand like how it works, but I don't know how it's going to play. The Cipher mechanic involves you encoding a card onto a creature and then casting that card every time the creature whacks a guy. Let's go backwards this time. Steven, you can start.
I want a show of hands. Who has been absolutely destroyed and limited by Cephalid Constable?
Oh.
Hold on. I'm Googling it.
Just raise your hand.
The 3-mana,
sure
1/1 from OTJ that bounces equal to damage done.
Okay. Yeah. Hand up.
Yeah. So I just I don't know. I hate that card, Cephalid Constable. I hate it with a passion. I think that this is the sort of mechanic which just either doesn't do anything at all, is completely miserable, or really ruins someone, like just beats their face in. I don't know whether the mechanic's good or not, but I know that I'm not excited to play with it really. It's not fun for me when I can't block their creatures, and it's even less fun for me when I can't block their creatures and then they're like doing terrible things to me. So I don't know, maybe Glenn would like it.
Well,
No, I actually echo like your last point exactly. Like that was one of the things I didn't like about werewolves in the Innistrad format was like, oh man, I'm mana screwed and don't get to cast spells. But also my opponent's cards are getting better.
oh man.
Cards they've already cast are actually improving before my eyes.
Can we talk about Grandma? I think her actual name is Lamholt Elder or something.
Yeah,
Which is just like
Lamholt.
the most miserable card in the universe if you're actually
Oh.
playing Magic. But if you're mana screwed, you have never been more dead. Just like Mr. Landrop, good evening. Like,
So like on some level, I think Cypher feels a little bit like that. Most of the cards that I've seen aren't like super intimidating. I think Hands of Binding, also known as like Blinding Beam with free buyback or whatever, like that card's gonna be super obnoxious and limited. If you're at a pre-release, just take all of those and kill everybody because they won't realize it's insane, and it is. Like, it's gonna be just very, very good and limited. I think to have like 5 copies of week 1 when nobody figures it out. But that card's just obnoxious. Most of the cards feel like they're overcosted by like 1, which I guess you kind of have to do. Like, I think that might even just be because of Invisible Stalker. Like, with Invisible Stalker in the format, if you want to print this mechanic, like, you just have to be super careful, right? Because, like, if you're wrong about something, then it's just going to kill everybody, like, every time. There's just nothing they can do.
Yeah, it ruins everything if they're wrong.
Yeah, so you just have to be careful, and that's kind of a frustrating thing to have to deal with. Invisible Stalker, just when you thought he was done, he continues to bother us. Does anyone actually know a reason why it is called Cypher and encodes cards? Why isn't it just called Encode and encodes cards? Have they said something about it? Like, I mean, I'm fully willing to entertain the notion that there's a reason to do that. I just can't think of one myself, and it really, really bothers me. Like, there's just, I don't know. That's like a very big pet peeve for me.
I wanted to
So
have
yeah, not like
as many like embarrassing spy words on the card.
sure. I'm just not impressed, I guess, by Cypher. I think it's fine. I think it'll mostly annoy people or be dismissed by them rather than like, have devoted followers. That said, I think that there are some cool Dimir cards. I just don't think any of them have Cypher on them. Like,
Sure.
that's all. So I'm looking forward to the set in that regard, like the Guild Mage and Lazav. Sweet cards.
All right, Cedric, do you have any specific thoughts on encoding?
I mean, Glenn basically brought up the point that I was going to bring up, which is just like Cypher versus encoding. But one thing that does make me like really mad, and like this is probably irrational. I'm an irrational human being, so it's fine. It's like I don't know if wizards just think that there's just endless words in the dictionary to use to like make up cards, but I feel like we shouldn't just throw away good words when we have them. Like encode is a perfectly good name for an ability, and then we could use Cypher for something else in like sets down the road instead of just throwing away both words now. Like there's this card in this set called Rapid Hybridization, and it's just fucking Pongify.
Yeah, Pogify is back, but it makes a different kind of thing. It's not a monkey anymore.
Yeah, like, why couldn't we just call this Pongify and just use Rapid Hybridization for just another card later down the road? Because, like, that's a cool name for a card. But instead, we're just like, oh, that card, just throw it away, it's gone. Like, we can't use that anymore. Like, we don't have endless words. I don't know how many words there are in the English language, but...
Pongify is clearly strictly better because an ape token is better than a whatever the hell stupid token this thing makes.
It's
like,
a frog lizard.
Yeah,
Pongify
out.
also might not be a word anyway, so...
You could be right.
Turns it into Pong. I don't understand how you could be having difficulty here.
I'm just saying, don't just, like, go throwing away, like, names of cards, that's all. And maybe that's not even, like, a fair complaint. I just don't like they do that. And the Cypher and the encode thing, it seems like that might be, like, weird for, like, people who don't play competitively as much as we do to, like, adjust to. It's like, I'm going to use the Cypher mechanic, I'm going to encode this, and the person's just going to be like, wait, what's going on? Like, what are
I thought
doing?
you were
I'm very
ciphering. You
confused.
can't just change to encoding in the middle of the spell.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
not
like,
how magic
And
works.
what is this blue-black guild? That isn't even like a thing.
Yeah. Like, I feel like there could actually could actually be like a thing that happens in the preview. Some kid or whatever. It's just like you're ciphering and you're encoding. Like, how many things does this card do exactly?
What don't
I'm
you
really
do?
confused. Yeah, and like, why are my creatures untapping when your hands of binding? And like, why do you have so many hands of bindings? And things are just gonna like spiral out of control.
You've only got 2 hands. This doesn't make any sense.
They're just gonna spiral out of control. Like, I basically echo what both Steven and Glenn said. Like, as far as the mechanic goes, it's like it's either just like it's probably gonna be like a really good limit mechanic, and it's just gonna be like not fun at all. Like, just like the fact that like they encode onto like a flyer, and they're like, I don't really kind of weak against flyers. I guess I'm dead. Like, I can't really do anything, and it's like frustrating or whatever. It doesn't seem like it's a constructed worthy mechanic, but you never know.
Yeah, we could touch the slipperiest of boggles with this, I suppose. We could.
Doesn't take me much to get excited about that.
No.
One way that I could actually really see this being a cool mechanic in limited is if the limited format, and I think I can say continues, if it is a race-based format where blocking is difficult, I actually think that Cypher is sort of cool.
Sure. I think like Hands of Binding, I don't know, it like might even be reasonable and constructed like as a pseudo spectral flight for like Geist or whatever. It obviously like I think it interacts pretty favorably against like these Bant decks that lean on Thragtusk, you know? Like they have to cast 3 Thragtusks before their creature actually like blocks. Right?
By the way, Geist is staying trapped with the Evolve 1-drops.
With what?
The Evolve 1-drops.
Oh, that's kind of cute, yeah. I see what you did there.
Sure.
You're smart. Where did all this come from? You're just on top of it. There's all the interactions just blowing my mind. I just want to buy all the experiment ones right now because I didn't know it was a human.
I just don't think the mana works, but I really.
Oh, wait, you don't think the mana works? Well, maybe. We just went over Andrew Shroud's deck. I think we can fucking make it work.
Probably. I think there's hope.
Yeah, I'll make it work.
We have 5 more dual lands, man. How could it not work? We'll just play 20 duels. That means we can cast all our spells, right? Like
Shimmering Grotto is legal. Alright, the Grotto is legal.
The best card for casting 1-drops there's ever been.
It is legal.
Alright, I wanted to echo Steven's thoughts quickly before we moved on, and also just say, possibly this is just because of like when I played a ton of Magic, but it didn't remind me of Cephalid Constable, but it did remind me of Sigil of Sleep. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had the joy of losing to Sigil of Sleep, but
that one was...
I can see this being a lot like that. Sigil of Sleep is a 1-mana blue enchantment from Saga that bounces your guy whenever they punch you, if that's what you're looking up.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking up right now. And it's not combat damage, it's just like any damage.
Oh yeah, sometimes it would go on Prodigal Sorcerer and you'd be like, oh, delightful! Like,
yeah, the game is
Don't forget that Hermetic Study was also in that block.
Yeah. That's fun. For everyone.
Thanks for playing.
Alright.
Yes.
Okay, let's go. I have a couple specific card questions, and then I will let you guys do as you please with the rest of the spoiler. The first thing I'm going to ask you about is, now you will get to make fun of my pronunciation, Domri Raid? Are we going with Raid or Rad?
Sure.
The 3-mana...
Say it in a deeper voice?
No, that's never happening. The 3-mana 1-green-red Planeswalker is what we are talking about. It has +1, reveal the top card if it's a creature, put it in your hand. And the ultimate makes your guys huge, and the -2 ability makes your guy punch their guy, I think. I'm not looking at the spoiler right now, but I think that's what it does.
Yeah,
Anyway,
right.
let us start with... Who did I start with before? I don't know. Glenn, you get to start.
Sure. I kind of like Domri Raid. I don't think that the +1 is especially powerful as +1s go, but for a 3-mana Planeswalker, that's kind of par for the course. I think that you have to be pretty careful with your +1s because turn 3 is like, or even turn 2, depending on like what you did on turn 1, it's really fast to start, putting Planeswalkers onto the battlefield, and if they just get too high too fast, you're just laying down blockers, especially in the color that has Huntmaster of the Fells. Like, if this guy was going to like 5 loyalty with a good ability or something after you play a Huntmaster of the Fells, that's going to be really obnoxious for anybody to play against. So in some ways, it's just constrained by, I think, its environment and that it can't have an awesome +1. It just has to have a reasonable one. But its -2 is Liliana-esque. It's a planeswalker that can come down and sort of defend itself. Uh, I don't know. I'm fine with it. I mean, obviously it needs a little help, but I'm interested at least. It's far better than like Tybalt, who was a giant failure in an undercosted planeswalker, and I think that they're kind of toying with the lower costs and seeing what they can do, and I think he's a reasonable guy. Not awesome, but reasonable.
But very popular, I think, Tybalt was, wasn't he? Like, with the non-competitive crowd?
Everyone thought he was going to be good. Like, they thought that it
Well,
was
I did.
just good enough.
Like,
It's two
I'm
mana,
not
it's good
saying he
enough.
was good. I'm saying
Everyone was excited about Tybalt until they actually like cast the spell, and then I think that popularity has since just died.
All right.
Oh, that's
Okay.
weird.
Okay, so
Shocking.
Cedric, what do you think about this powerful planeswalking monster?
I like it.
You're a fan?
I like it. He's cool. He comes down on turn 2 because he's in green, and he can start getting to work right away. Part of the reason that Jace Bellerin was awesome for him for a ton of reasons, but the decks that can play Jace Bellerin on turn 2, that's a big game right there. This is pretty hard to beat when they play a turn 2 Jace off a bird. And I feel like kind of the same way with this one. Obviously, it's not as powerful as Jace Bellerin was, but I mean, this card has like a lot going for it. Influences deck construction. Obviously, you want to have a lot of creatures in your deck. I agree with Glenn on the fight ability being fairly relevant. It is like a little bit unique. It does need a little bit of help, but then you get in situations where the fight ability, you just can like never lose it, which is pretty nice. And then, I mean, who cares about the ultimate? You get there, you win. So good for you. It seems like a pretty good card. I mean, like the only reason I really think this card is like really good is just because you can play it on turn 2 and just start getting to work right away with your green decks. This isn't a card that I think is great, but if it was like in a non-green color combo, you probably wouldn't be able to cast it early. But since you can, I think it's actually pretty good. So we'll see what it can do and how it influences decks and stuff like that.
All right, Steven?
The card is not lightning bolt, and like my point there is like this card does not do something obvious. Like it's a very, very odd card to try to evaluate. Saying that the -2 is like Liliana to Veil's -2, like just like I don't think it is. I don't know. Like there are a lot of things to think about with this card. Like it's a 3-drop in green red, which doesn't attack. Is one thing that's like a pretty huge setback. I think you need a green red attrition based deck. On the other hand, we have a few attrition based decks going around. One sort of nice thing is that the Gruul mechanic is turning creatures into instants, essentially. So you can potentially have a deck which is heavier on creatures but still maintains like some variety of combat trickery. That said, I feel like this is like a very good card to have in your limited deck, but I struggle to like really see where it's going in a constructed archetype and making any sense at all. Why would you play this in a green-red deck with a bunch of creatures instead of like casting a 3-drop which attacked them? I just don't know. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. I'm going to make a quick prediction because this segment is never fun if everyone can't see how terrible they were 1 month later. I think
That's
this
the best
card...
part.
What?
That's the best part, being wrong
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I think it's interesting, but I think it's, like, pretty bad. I think it's maybe the worst 3-mana Planeswalker they've made. Were there any that were, like, really atrocious? Yeah, I think it's probably worse than the 3-mana Johnny. So, like...
Dude, I don't even know what that card does.
It gives something double
I know
strike.
the plus one.
I think that's a close fight, but
Yeah.
probably.
I praise. I praise.
I just think 3-mana Johnny just hasn't found his time in the sun yet. That's all.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that card's really powerful. Personally, I think it's really, really powerful. It just hasn't really just found its spot yet. That's all.
Alright. Alright,
Well,
let's...
they're pretty different cards. So.
Yeah, let's find the next thing we can be awesomely wrong about. Ooh, okay. Our next question is New Gideon. We will... Yeah. Cedric, you may start on New Gideon.
This card has to suck, right? I can't be wrong about this. This card looks terrible. But I don't want to be wrong about it, because, like, it could be really good. I remember when I saw the first Gideon, and I was like, man, that card seems okay. And then I played against it once with like a aggressive deck, and I just couldn't win ever. And I don't know if this is the exact same or not. It's a weird card. It really is. Like,
It is, yes.
I'm trying to think of like when you play it, how big does it get with the +1? Where do we go? We get like 1 from the +1, so we're at least going to 5, and then like where are we going from there? Like, are we going up to 7? Are we going up to 8? With like how many creatures they have in play, and then like are they going to attack this or just ignore it? Like, what point do they actually get to where they have to attack it? And then it becomes a creature. Sorry, I'm reading it. I'm trying to figure out how big it is.
It's a 4/4.
Okay, no, it becomes a 4/4, but it becomes a creature. I mean, loyalty counters on it. So then, like, after you play, you could be attacking like a 7/7. You could like verdict them and attack 7/7 or whatever. It's weird. Like, this is a card where like it's like a lot of people are gonna have like an initial reaction about it, where it's like this card's bad, like this card's good. But I don't think this is a card that you can actually judge. Kind of like the last one we went over, unless you're actually playing with it and like seeing how it like, actually like plays in a game state, which is the name of our show. Because it's just, yep, I did that. It's just it's a weird card, because it's very easy to look at this card and be like, come on, who the hell would ever attack this? This card sucks. And 2 turns later, it's like, shit, I have to attack this or I'm dead. Or like you could be being attacked by like a 13-13. That's like not something you could ignore. So, I don't know. The jury is kind of out on this one. It's hard to analyze.
Nice
At least
hedge.
for me. Thank you. King of the hedge.
Well hedged. Alright, Glenn, New Gideon.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same train. Like, I would kind of like it to be good. It's an attractive looking card, I think. Like, I like the idea behind it. I think I remember reading it somewhere that like previous Gideon was like a 6/6 because they couldn't fit this version in the text box. Like, that was why they sized him that way. So like getting the actual loyalty sizing of Gideon is kind of nice. I think Prozac characterized him as like a bad Thrun, which is maybe about where he belongs. A creature that's mostly good against control, not really good in a lot of other spots, and kind of narrow. I think that's reasonable. I'm not too excited about him. We again see the a +1 that's pretty weak as far as +1s go. This one is basically just not a +1; it's a plus something and then nothing.
If you're playing against Belcher, it might be +20.
It might be, and then you'd be dead. So I like that there's a Gideon in Standard again, as it were. Like he was a cool card, and getting to see him enter the red zone and people end of turn throw burn spells at him and watch those not do anything. I'm looking forward to all those good things once more in my life. So thank you, Gideon. Thank you.
All right, Steven, New Gideon.
Nope.
Nope.
No. Nah.
Are you gonna tell the people what you told me on Skype like before the show today?
Are you trying on Skype? Like, that's absolutely rancid?
Yes, you told me it was
Those were my exact
rancid,
words,
were
right?
your exact words. We were talking before the show. This card is rancid, I believe is what you said.
Here's my problem. Like, okay, in my limited deck, I'm happy to have this in the 4 slot as like a reasonable creature. But like, when we look at Planeswalkers, we don't evaluate them like that. We don't look at Jace and say, yeah, this is almost as good as Concentrate, so we could probably play that somewhere. Like, I'm looking for this Planeswalker to like blow me off my feet, actually be something that I want to play in a constructed deck, and this is not. It's just, I don't even think like, I just don't see any line in any matchup where you want this card. I think there are plenty of lines you can play this card, and you can like, ooh, I made a 12/12, and then I wrathed all your creatures. And yeah, if you wrathed all your creatures, like, you would have won anyway. Who cares about the 12/12? And I think you can like play this miserable 4/4 against a control deck and be like, ha ha, ha ha, ha, and like then probably lose the game, or like, I don't like this card.
Alright. I think that Glenn's, nay Adam Prozac's, slightly worse Thrun is reasonable. but I would also like to back Steven in a I think this card sucks boat. Like, I'm willing to climb into that boat so we can both go down in it together if it turns out that card is awesome. I was thinking of it as like a bigger Luminarch Ascension, when I think like a slightly shittier
That's reasonable.
Thrun is actually a probably more accurate comparison. But yeah, I just don't think it does like enough of what
One
you
of
want it to do.
our chatters posted the killer combo of Dominating Raid with Gideon. Oh yeah.
So
Fight
you
all
can like
night long.
reveal him and just take off your pants.
Fight
You actually,
like,
you can actually fight once, and then you can not draw a card on your next turn. And
Right.
you can, and you can fight again, but you'll lose your
I
three
think
copies.
I don't know, man. You gotta respect some indestructible fighting.
all right.
I'm down.
I don't have to respect that, Glenn.
He is a champion of justice.
I mean, at
That's
least you're
on the
picking
card.
fights that you know you're gonna win, right? Like,
Okay. All right. Good. The next
Actually,
card.
Hold on,
Next.
hold on.
What?
How does the new red burn interact with that? It would make him die, right?
no, he prevents the damage that would be dealt as well. Otherwise, yes,
But it
it would.
can't be prevented.
Huh?
It doesn't get dealt at all because he's indestructible.
Oh, the Skullcrack? Skullcrack.
Yeah.
does it. Well, Strength.
Yeah, so you don't even know you're winning the fight. Hard as shit.
I mean,
All right. The next place.
Skullcrack is so good against.
Yep.
Oh my god.
The next
Bro,
place we
what
are
the fuck?
going.
This
Ow.
card I think is unplayable, man.
Look at Adam trying to move the show along. Not gonna happen.
I want to talk about Ghost Granddad. That's where I want to go.
All right.
Is it? And is Ghost Granddad an acceptable name? Someone was calling him Ghost Dad in the chat, but that name is taken, sir. Like that one's gone.
You know,
This is
this
the
was actually
Granddad.
hilarious to me because at Columbus, Ari and Prozac were talking about this card and making fun of it as like it's Bill Cosby, you know,
Yeah,
like
okay,
it just
that's
has
fair.
to be him. But what they didn't actually know was that Bill Cosby starred in the movie Ghost Dad, and I thought they knew that because that's like why the joke even is funny, right? Like, but no, they just had no idea, and we're completely coincidentally making the reference, just based on Cosby's speech patterns.
All right.
I
That was
didn't know
an
that.
easy ad.
So Ghost Granddad?
Yeah,
You want to know about him?
I do.
All right. I like this card. I said it. I like it. I want it to be good, really bad.
Committed.
I do. I want it to be good, really bad. I don't know if it's going to be, but I want it to be because it's super powerful and it does all these cool things. This is the same way I felt about Thragtusk the first time I saw it. I saw Thragtusk and I was like, man, this card's fucking sweet and I want it to be good. And it is good. And I hope this card's good too. Like, there's a lot going on here. A lot of text. It's big. It might be a little... it's probably actually not that hard to cast with all the mana that we have. It's probably easier than I think. But I like all the things this card does, and I want it to be good. And damn it, it will be. I said it. I said it. I'm on its side, and I'm going to find a way to make it good. I don't know what it combos with. I don't know if you would ever want a restoration into this. I don't know. But I like it. And I think it's going to be good. And I like the picture. And I hated Ghost Council of Orzhov when it was before because I could never beat it. But I like this one.
What were you doing?
So,
Like,
I think I was Magnavoring a lot.
I
and
didn't remember how that went.
Well, see,
Shining Shoal.
Yeah, Shining
Phase
Shoal was a
one.
problem. Yeah, couldn't Wildfire.
Yeah.
That stupid card in play. That was a bit of an issue. It was also a 4/4 for 4, where that was like a good rate for a card.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He
yeah,
was
that's
big
just-
back in the day.
Yeah, that seems like a long time ago. Then it was a 4/4 for 4 that was really hard to kill.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And under the
draining-
old rules, he actually did things like
Yeah.
that was a thing that happened.
Yeah, and the draining didn't seem like a big deal, but it always was. You're just like getting nickel and dimed every time. You're like, this card's annoying, and then you just keep getting nickel and dimed and lose. I want this card to be good, and yeah, it's gonna be because I decided that it's gonna be good. So
Alright.
there you
Way to take a stand. I salute you, sir.
go.
Glenn,
My line is in the sand.
and how do you feel about, before we move on, how do you feel Ghost Granddad? The chat has also suggested Ghost Uncle, which I am willing to accept, if that, I mean, it rolls off the tongue a little better.
I don't know. I like Ghost Granddad quite a bit.
Okay. Do you think that's superior to Bill Cosby? Because I'm willing to accept that as well. That seems like...
I don't like Bill Cosby.
Alright. Alright, Glenn, Ghost Granddad.
I also think that this card is pretty good. It's reasonably aggressively costed. It interacts favorably against the creatures that we're playing against. For example, I wouldn't mind being against a Thragtusk with this card, which is like a pretty good test to be passing. I mean, in general, I think it's just a strong card. Its abilities are all good. Nothing to really argue about. I do think that between this card, Thundermaw Hellkite, Angel of Serenity, Selesnya Charm is probably going to be like a better spell than it already was, and it's already a pretty good one. So, I mean, people are playing Predator Oozes and Lotlet Trolls for Pete's sake. Like, Selesnya Charm is going to be pretty realistic, I think.
I'm not sure that I believe that card isn't like really good right now.
I mean, it's already good. That's what I'm saying. But like, I actually like actively want to be playing it. Like, I was playing Ultimate Prices in Vegas over Selesnya Charms. Like, I thought about it. I think in the next month, like, I would 100% be on the Charms. Like,
Right.
not close.
Okay, cool. Steven, Ghost Granddad.
Yeah, I think Ghost Grandma. It's like,
Is that bad? Because it,
I-
like, that's my
well,
guess, but I'm not
it's
sure.
expensive, and it's like a little less nimble. Definitely doesn't move around very much. I don't know.
Getting through.
The thing about Ghosted is it went in a deck with like Telewisp, Shining Shoal, Dark Confidant, and even if you weren't playing the Telewisp engine, it had a Dark Confidant in it. It was a very clear attrition deck, and it was an attrition card. Not only was it like pinging you for one, but you could actually pay to remove it, so they couldn't hit it with their removal spells, and you could stack combat damage and remove it, so you could like be eating creatures with it, etc. And this card is completely different. Like, honestly, may not even be related, still waiting on the DNA. Just because of how the format is set up, it's going to be in completely different roles. I don't think it's that exciting compared to the other 5-drops we have available. For one, the mana cost is, like, I think very prohibitive and not colors that are super where you want to be in those sort of decks. I believe black is the like only color that people aren't playing. Although I suppose if you add the swamp, the Borderland Ranger can get you that too. So I don't know. I'm just, this card does so much less than the original Ghost Council does.
I do want to.
Does.
I wanted to point out that it is a spirit for Cavern of Souls, which I think is pretty relevant. I forgot to mention that in my space.
What
So
other spirits we got?
little
So
Geist of Saint Traft is one of the more reasonable spirits legal in the format,
Alright.
but there are a few, and it's just worth keeping in mind
Although-
because that's what you're caverning if you do.
Very good with evolved creatures, I will say. So
Sure,
you just like play the blue 1-drop, the green 1-drop in turn 2, and then you start laying the white and black sources.
Alright. Well played. I was going to ask if you were going for the Spirit Tribal over the Advisor Tribal, but I think your suggestion is more ridiculous, so you win. Okay. My last question, specifically for spoilers, is, well, it's a pretty open-ended one. I'm not sure we can even qualify it as a question. I just want to talk about the dual lands. Obviously, the last 5 dual lands from the Ravnica cycle are coming in this block. We're going to get, what are the 5 in question? Watery Grave, I don't want to name them. It was a bad path. I take it back. 5 dual lands, they're coming. Which one is going to be the most influential, and what are they going to do to the format? We will start with Steven, because he's not dead.
I'm
Steven.
sort of dead right now.
Well, Cedric was fully dead, so you got the tap.
I don't want to like try to pretend that I know which ones are going to be the most exciting. Probably blue-green. I'll just say it. I do know it's blue-green. What I want to say is like to reiterate the point I made when we were last looking at spoilers, like 4 months ago or however long ago, that when you're looking at a spoiler of a new set, like the cards that really matter are the lands and the 1 casting cost and 2 casting cost spells. And so the lands for this set don't matter that much. Not as much as the last ones, because now we're going to be in a situation where all the color pairs have a dual land. But for the last set, it was really important that only 5 of the colors had dual lands. And the fact that we now have all 10 colors having dual lands is going to open up a lot of really interesting decks, and I think diversify the standard format quite a lot. So that'll be exciting. And like the big showy cards that you see, like I really don't think they matter as much as these lands are going to.
Man, are there people who think that the cards that aren't the lands are going to matter more than the lands? Like
Those people exist.
We
I
do.
I would like
We let off with like 3 casting cost crap planeswalker, and then we moved to 4 casting cost crap planeswalker.
Look, man.
And now like has a little footnote, by the way, like 5 lands, which are going to completely change the constructed
All right.
format.
Whatever you say. Okay, Glenn. Who's going where? What land's doing the most work?
They're all pretty much equally good. I think they'll all see a ton of play. I'm not going to call any front runners. Like,
Coward.
I mean, that's what they are. Like, I could lie and say like Watergrave's going to top 8 way more tournaments, but like that's probably just not true. Like,
You'd be 20% to look like a genius.
No, I think I'm 100% to be wrong if I think they're all going to be equally good.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
Alright. Can't win any of them. Alright, Cedric, do you have any strong feelings about
None
the
of
lands in general?
They all suck. I don't like any of them. I
Hipster
prefer,
Glenn was there
What's
first.
exciting about it? Like,
I prefer the guild gates.
I own hundreds of
There.
plains, and I own hundreds of swamps. What's exciting about both at once?
I am gonna work on my gateway shit.
How many will you trade me for a Shivan Dragon, friend? Are we still in that time period? Can we do that?
There should be a name for gateway shade, I think. Just because it uses the gates to its advantage, and it's an angry thing that attacks you. Anyone with me on this? Anyone? Am I alone?
Yeah, I think
Alright, I'm
you are
alone.
alone.
That's fine.
Pretty good with the only other mono black card that's spoiled, which makes your swamps tap for twice as much black.
Yeah.
Yeah, that green card is now a mono black card somehow. Maybe it like fell in a pool or something.
Look at that picture of that shade. It's a fucking creepy gate that attached you.
Be
I don't know,
afraid. Be very
I
afraid.
feel
Did you,
I've
like,
seen that in, like a movie or
Really
something.
suddenly become drunk? Like
No! It just looks like a scary card. That's all I'm saying.
Alright.
Nothing
Whatever you
wrong.
say.
Yeah.
I was drunk
Whatever you say,
I
indeed.
was drunk yesterday. I'm not drunk anymore. And it is a scary card. Look at the picture. What would you think if that was coming at you? How about that?
Holy
I think
God.
that's a gate. It's not going anywhere.
Well, that's what most people would think. You're wrong. You're wrong. You would be under duress very
The
quickly.
second it comes toward you, you're like freaked out, though, right? Like,
Yeah. That's a scary card. Alright? Alright, I'm done with this tangent.
Yeah, it's literally a door. What are you talking about? Like
It's not a door. It's not a door. It is a gate.
yeah, okay, I understand it's a gate. Like a wrought iron gate, yes. Okay.
It like creaks. It makes noises.
It's made of metal!
And then it attacks you. And then you're on the run, like Crash Bandicoot when the rock is chasing you. But instead of a rock, it is a gate of metal. I would be more scared of a gate of metal. That's right.
Okay.
I said
Sure.
it.
tireless and merciless.
Thanks for your
Shades are
insight.
harnessed as spies by the Demir. Who are the Demir?
What?
Damn.
That's not very demure of you, Steven.
The Demir are encoded.
And if
My
you
son.
don't remember that joke, you haven't been posting on the same forums. Alright, I am going to allow you guys gonna give you some rope. You can pick your own thingamabob or any specific card or mechanic from the new set and talk about it if you would like at this juncture. Otherwise, we are going to shut down the show. So choose wisely. Steven, do you have any specific things you want to talk about from the spoiler before we shut her down for this week? Pre-release is
Yeah.
in 3 weeks, I think, so you have about that long.
Okay. This is really unusual for me, but I really like the flavor on one of these cards.
Ooh.
Not something I usually do, but Murder Investigation, which is 1 white, it's an aura, and when the enchanted creature you control dies, you put X/1/1 soldiers into play, where X is its power. I think that card is awesome.
So they
it
were
just sounds like CSI on a Magic
were they
card.
hiding inside the person who died, and then
No,
like
they're investigating its death. And if it's bigger, more of them investigate because the rich people matter more. That's
okay.
this
I was
is
just
Orzhov.
I was
This
just
is what
thinking
they're
like if it's a really big guy and it dies, there's room for more tiny guys inside of it. So
telling.
And I'm the freak with the gateway shade. I'm the messed
it's
up
a door.
I'm the messed up one here. Okay. Alright. It's me.
All right. Okay. I acknowledge your opinion is is totally reasonable. Do you have anything further, or is it just Murder Investigation? I acknowledge that the Orzhov flavor is cool. I hadn't considered that.
That's it, man.
All right. Glenn, do you have anything from the set that you would like to touch on?
Just I've seen a few cards I like so far, so I can just spout those off, I guess. I like Clan Defiance as a bonfire pseudo alternative. Seems sweet. Skullcrack obviously pretty good. I think Dimir Keyrune is actually really attractive as like a pseudo creeping tar pit. I could see that actually seeing like constructed level play in standard. It's never going to be good enough in any other format, unlike my good friend Creeping Tar Pit. And last but not least, I actually like our Pongify reprint a lot better this time than it was last time around. I'm looking forward to hybridizing some Thundermaw Hellkites. That is embarrassing. I actually think that it's just like a pretty fine card considering our format is really warped around being able to deal with 3/3 tokens already. Like, everyone just already has to know that they can beat a 3/3 token. So if you're accidentally giving one every now and again, that's not that big a deal, especially when it's killing something as insane as a Thundermaw Hellkite. So, yeah, I like that card. I like Pongify in general, so.
So you're saying that Pongify is better now than it was before, but
Yeah.
not that Frog Lizard is superior to Ape?
Correct.
Okay, good. I approve of both of those stances. I'm glad we could be on the same level. All right, Sed, do you have anything you wanna touch on?
All right, so I will spare you another tangent on the gateway shade because I'm a nice guy. All right.
That's all right. Reasonable people can
But
agree to disagree.
What I will do is put a picture of the gateway shade in the chat. So, all right. So that's done. All right. There's a bunch of cards that I like in this set, just like from flavor standpoint. So I'm just gonna rattle them off. Number 1, Alms Beast. I don't know what that thing is on the picture, other than just a giant animal.
Yeah.
But that card's kind of cool. Biovisionary. You can expect moto photos of that with right to replication. I don't know if there's any other way to go off with that card. I'm sure someone will find something. What else?
Primal Surge. Come on now.
What does that do again?
Puts all the permanents in your library into play.
And then they die, and it only costs 10 mana.
You can just cast all 4 of them. I don't understand.
I've never run that good before.
It's just a certain win condition for like turn 25.
Do you think people are gonna see that? I really want to see that happen in a limited game. Just like someone has 4, and it's just like, you're dead. Like, that would be very enjoyable.
You can
maybe in Team Sealed. I would like to see that happen in Team Sealed. You might
have
pack stacks.
I will take any format. Like
1 foil, 3 regulars. Yeah. Got him.
Bad beat, bro.
Like, your opponent just gets increasingly more incredulous. Like, you cast the first one, and you're like, that's slightly depressing. And they cast the second one, and they're like, no. There's no way. And the third one comes down, and they're like, I'm really going to die to this. Like, this is really going to happen. And you just windmill slam the 4th one. And they're obligated to leave the hall. Like, they're dead.
Politely leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Clan Defiance. I want to make sure I'm reading this right. So if I pay like 3 as X and then red and green, I just get to deal 3 to something upstairs, 3 to something downstairs, and then 3 to them.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that card's really good. Yeah.
Player added on.
So this is just like the best limited card or whatever?
Oh yes, it is going to do some limited. That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to confirm. This card seems ridiculous, and it could be good and constructed too. But I mean, this card just seems like relatively ridiculous. I think Death Pact Angel has the best art in the set. I don't think it's particularly close. I also think it's a really good card. Um, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I think Mystic Genesis is probably my favorite card in the set.
It's quite enjoyable, yeah.
Just from like a flavor standpoint, I think the card's fucking sweet. So I like that card a lot. I'm glad they reprinted Sky Knight Legionnaire, even though I'm surprised it doesn't have a different name this go around.
How do you feel about that
And
artwork?
well, what do you want me to feel about that artwork?
I
Better
mean,
question.
I've received word that some people are not a big fan of the new Sky Knight Legionnaire artwork. I personally am not strongly in favor of it. But you don't like feel strongly about it? I'm a little bit surprised about that.
I mean, I'm okay with it. It's not like good or bad. I mean, it has like
Yeah.
this interesting picture. It reminds me of like when Kibler won the with that picture from Japan. That's what people have been saying. It's overly sexual. I don't understand the picture. Why doesn't it just look like the old one?
It's
I don't know,
overly
it's fine.
sexual, really? Have
I
you
got that
seen
from
Magic
multiple
card
people.
art? Like,
I've got that from multiple people on Facebook. That's all I'm saying. And I think it's like fine. I don't think it's as good as the
Alright.
last one, but it's not that great either.
yeah, I mean, my default stance on art is like could not possibly care less, but that one I am not particularly fond of. But, huh.
I think all the Dual Lands new artwork are fucking insane. I think they're all really nice, and I like all the flavor texts on the guild gates. I don't know if you guys have read them yet, but I think the flavor texts on the guild gates are really sweet. And then other than that, I mean, like all the mechanics seem like kind of cool. I know we didn't go over Battalion today, but that mechanic seems like it's all right. It's not great or anything. I guess we need to see more creatures that have that ability.
Maybe they'll spoil something awesome with that ability on it, and then we'll get to talk about it. Like,
besides the Fireman Angel or Fireman guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then, like, the only thing that kind of like disappointed me was, I don't know, the Gruul mechanic just kind of just left me just going whatever. And maybe I shouldn't feel that way. It just was just kind of just like a letdown. I didn't know what I was expecting, to be fair, but I don't know. Blood Rush just doesn't really do it for me. Maybe you guys like it or something. I don't know. It just didn't really hit home with me as like this really cool, grueling mechanic.
I think it was because they spoiled it on Rubble Hulk, and I just looked at Rubble Hulk and I was like, so that invasion rare, like Malimo or whatever that guy was called, like, great, delightful. Like, I don't know. Normally when it's a 6-mana rare and they spoil it early, you're like, oh man, this is gonna crush someone's soul in limited. And this one is just like, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I guess it's okay. Like,
I mean, playing against Red Green Limited is gonna be kind of hell now, right? Like, I guess that's like kind of cool, just because like every time they attack, it's just like, God, which one do they have? Depending on like what the range of Blood Rush cards there are, because I'm already looking.
Whoa! You're gonna try and block? Like, just kill these kids.
I'm looking at like three of them that cost 3. There's like the +1. There's a +3/+1 that's first strike. There's Rollback Hulk, but that's a rare, and then there's the Piggy, which gives +5. Jesus Christ, +5/+4 so much for 1 red green. So, I mean, playing against Gruul might be pretty tough and limited now. But I mean, there's like a lot of cool things going here. I think that this set, compared to the last one, this one just seems like way better from like a flavor standpoint and things that are going on. It's like way more interesting to me than the last set.
I like it too.
Yep,
but that's all I got.
That. I just super quickly before we shut it down, do you think this? Because I agree, the red green mechanic seems quite good and limited to me. You think it's going to be more enjoyable to play with than Bloodthirst, which was the last red green mechanic, which I thought was like good but unenjoyable to play limited with?
Because I didn't care much.
I felt like Bloodthirst just meant you just blocked every time because they could play Gorkland Savage and you'd be like, well, I can't beat that card because he's bigger than God. So
yeah, I didn't love that mechanic. It was fine or whatever. Yeah, it was definitely unexciting. That's for sure. Whereas this mechanic seems like it has like a lot more play to it. Plus, I mean, we just dealt with what was it called? Bloodthirst. Yeah, we just dealt with Bloodthirst again in M.
Yeah, M something.
M10 or 11 or something, and
I thought it was more than that. Maybe it wasn't.
M12.
It was M12. Okay, yeah, I did not enjoy that at all.
M11.
I did not enjoy Bloodthirst at all, man. That stupid 4-mana 4/4 vampire lightning.
The problem here is that it's not enjoyable to play red green unlimited. Is the problem.
Some people like to just bring the beats.
I love the battle.
Yeah, some people just like to brawl, man.
Speak for yourself,
guy. I've lava axed and been happy about it every time.
You like have a pet, you could like just draft the deck and then let your cat play the matches for you and not lose any equity.
Hey. I like to give the beatdowns. Don't judge me. Don't you judge me.
We'll see who's laughing when we're rushing
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah. I dare you to block.
Well, I mean, you
God,
might
block.
beat me or you might not. I don't think who you are makes any difference.
God, Glenn, why is your face so close to...
I was staring him down. That's how I get him to block.
He doesn't have to focus on playing his
Lost my
magic
headphones.
cards. So.
I've lost my headphones.
Alright, we've gone to an excellent place. Let's do shoutouts and get out of Dodge, boys and girls. Alright, Cedric, you can shout out first. Do your thing.
Alright, here we go. The people who came to say hi to me in Denver, thank you, I appreciate it. I'm gonna stream this week. I'm gonna stream. Oh man, I can't remember. I'm streaming Legacy, but I don't remember what deck I was gonna stream. Crap. Anyway, I'm streaming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'm going to San Diego. I'm doing coverage with me and Pat Sullivan for the SCG San Diego, so I won't be in Atlantic City to play any more Standard. I'll be covering that in Legacy instead. Glenn, you're not gonna be there, right?
Nope.
Is it me? It's Big Rubes this weekend.
Oops.
All right, it's going to be Big Rubes, myself, and Patrick Sullivan chilling in the most beautiful city in the country. And if you guys are going to Atlantic City, best of luck to you guys. And that's it. I wish I could remember what deck I was going to play in Legacy. That's annoying.
I mean, I could give you some usual suspects. Was it
I was going to play
goblins?
something like Off the Wall.
Like for you or for someone else?
Bug?
Yeah, like
Bug
a
again?
rug?
Yeah, are you going to play Force of Will, Said? I think I was going to consider giving lands a try.
I have seen you play lands.
I think I was gonna. So there's nothing really interesting to stream right now. Like Standard is boring. Modern, good God, no. Just please. And then just no. And then I don't want to ever draft Return to Ravnica again, ever again. So I'm gonna stream some sort of goofy Legacy deck. I just can't remember what I wanted to stream. So it'll be it's either a combo deck or like lands or something. So that's all.
Okay. Glenn, shout out to the people.
Yeah, I had quite the Sophie's Choice of tournaments this weekend with Grand Prix Atlantic City and SCG San Diego, but I will actually be in Jacksonville, Florida, playing in the equivalent of a Grand Prix for the WoW TCG. Don't get to play in very many of those. This is one of my 4 or 5 years, so hopefully I win that. Should be a very difficult GP. I'm expecting a little under 100 players. So, yeah, cheer me on.
You're all about that EV.
Yeah, I'm planning to try and start streaming a lot more this year, but getting some things together. Start of the year, I won't be doing it for a while. I especially am getting a second monitor, which will assist me greatly. So that's in the mail. Sweet. Beyond that, I have very little else going on.
All right. Steven, you have anything to say to the nice people?
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being great in chat. And see you next week.
All right. Yeah, and I just want to echo basically what Steven said. Thanks for watching. It's good to get to do the show again. I missed it during the 2 weeks that we were not here. Yeah. See you guys next week.
Bye!